Hello, everyone. Greetings. You are welcome to the JMA Connections on this Monday, the 13th day of April 2026. Let me take this opportunity to begin by saying Happy Country Sunday to all the people of the Southern Cameroons who have continued since 2017 to maintain Monday as a ghost town's day, as a day they shut down their shops, shut down their businesses, pack their cars, pack everything to draw the attention of the world to the plight of the people of the Southern Cameroons. On this day, usually, the people of the Southern Cameroons, all ages and all demographics put together, demonstrate before the entire world that the people want change, that the people do not want to continue to live in slavery and servitude, that the people want the international system to understand that botched decolonization processes can lead to serious harms like the genocide that is ongoing in the Southern Cameroons. On this day, the people of the Southern Cameroons continually tell the world that the quest for freedom is the most popular thing and the key thing that all the people of the Southern Cameroons want. On this day, the people deliberately foil Yaoundé and Paris' attempts to fool the world that only a handful of individuals who are disgruntled for one reason or the other are trying to spoil the peace, whereas the majority of the people of the former UN Trust territory of British Southern Cameroons are happy to continue to live in slavery and servitude. So this day is a very significant day. Mondays are very important days in the Southern Cameroons, are days of continuous protest, peaceful protest, continuous communication, continuous demonstration before everyone, before all and sundry, that it shall never be business as usual until the last vestiges of La République du Cameroon's colonial presence in the Southern Cameroons have been taken out, until this colonialism by proxy being practiced by Paris on the Southern Cameroons is over, is put an end to. So I like to take today to honor the civilian population in the Southern Cameroons, the Bayam Selams, the truck pushers, the taxi drivers, the interurban transporters, in fact, the entire business community and the laity, everyone in the Southern Cameroons, accept salutations from me today from the JMA Connections platforms. And I also want to salute our prisoners of war and our prisoners of conscience for continuing to stay in the gap, for continuing to stand strong. And I want to also pay respect to the memories of those who have fallen in the quest for freedom, those who continue to stand on the front lines to put their lives at risk because they want to ensure that we have freedom. I extend my regards to them this morning. Let's begin our communication today, which is definitely going to be brief, with this thought by Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine says, "If there must be trouble, let it be in my day, that my child may have peace." I take it again. If there must be trouble, let it be in my day, that my child may have peace. This is by Thomas Paine. This message is clear. It urges the people of the Southern Cameroons to understand that we have to do everything to end this thing in this generation. Because let this trouble that we are facing, let it stay in our day, so that our children and our children's children will have peace. They will not face the kind of annihilation attempts that we are facing right now. They will not hear talks like people saying that il faut les dératiser, like we are hearing. Like we have heard from citizens of La République du Cameroun. They will not hear things like people calling them les Biafrins, calling them les ennemis dans la maison, enemies in the house. No, we have to do everything to make sure our children and our children's children and generations of Southern Cameroonians to come should not hear that kind of dirty language. That is why this trouble that is reigning, fortunately it's in our day, that we may end it, so that by the time we pass the torch on to the next generation, we'll be passing on to them a free, independent, democratic, and prosperous country that should be on the path of total emergence. That said, let's talk about Pope Leo. The Pope is en route to Cameroon. Of course, he's already somewhere in Africa, and so he will be getting to Yaoundé, Cameroon on Wednesday, which is the 15th, and then we'll touch ground in Bamenda on Thursday, the 16th of April 2026. As the Pope prepares to go, he has continued to make statements, strong statements here and there. But before I get to that statement, there is some information that was sent to me 2 days ago, and I'm sure it's now circulating too on social media. But I did not want to talk about it immediately because I wanted to verify and see if that information had some real foundations. That piece of information came to me from someone who said a publication in Mayor Messala. Mayor Messala is in the Jah and Lobo division, the Jah and Lobo division of the South region. Of course, Jah and Lobo is the division where Paul Biya hails from, and Mayor Messala is the subdivision specifically where he hails from, because he's from Vomeka. And so a publication from Mayor Messala revealed that Franck Biya has been designated as the official who will receive Pope Francis at the airport when he arrives at the Nsimalen International Airport on Wednesday. I looked at the program, at the program of the papal visit. I combed through the entire program. They did not give any details in that official program as to who will be at the airport or who will not be to receive the Pope. But one thing is certain. The simple fact that they did not mention that Paul Biya, President of the Republic of Cameroon, was going to be at the airport to receive the Pope, it meant that someone else will be doing that on his behalf. In the past, he has sent the Prime Minister. But you know, in the diplomatic world, every little gesture matters. The Pope is a head of state. And so if a head of state is visiting another head of state, in normal circumstances, that head of state has to be at the airport to receive his guest. But we all know that Paul Biya is finished, completely finished, and he is vegetable. That is why you notice that on that program, he says when the Pope lands at the airport, he will leave from the airport and travel to Mvomeka, to the Unity Palace in Yaoundé, where he will have a 30-minute audience with Paul Biya. So this tells you that effectively Biya is not scheduled to be at the airport. And now that piece of information, that Franck Biya will be at the airport to welcome the Pope, that he will be the official to welcome the Pope. Now you ask yourself, Franck Biya is not in the organizational chart, in the administrative setup of Cameroon. But maybe, to some people who don't know, Franck Biya is a special advisor to the President of the Republic. A special advisor that they have been appointed a long time ago as a special advisor to the President of the Republic. And as a special advisor to the President of the Republic, he has the rank of a minister. But he is not a minister. He has a rank of a minister, but he is not a minister. He's only a special advisor. But now, that he will be picked to be the main official to receive the Pope at the airport will be a completely different setup. That will be a very telling situation. And that will be a direct announcement that, of course, Franck Biya is going to be the vice president. That Franck Biya is the successor to his father. So when I try to find out whether there is any veritas to this particular story, a lot of the officials that I spoke to told me that information was sent out as a teaser. And they don't know if that is going to happen, but one thing that is certain is that Franck Biya is going to be at the airport. That is what I was told. I'm not saying, I'm not confirming. That's what I was told. That's what my sources told me. That it is definitely certain that Franck Emmanuel Biya will be at the airport. But that he will be the main official to receive the Pope is a story for another day. So that will all open our eyes and we'll all watch. So since I did not have confirmation for that, and it was not equally dismissed, because they said they were not dismissing that because a lot of things are happening right now and things are moving so fast that no one can lay a finger on exactly what is going on. Recall, I had pointed out in the in my presentation, I think a few days back, where I was saying the stages that they're going to be following to see how to usher Franck Biya in. Do not forget, I talked about those high-profile photo ops. I talked about those instantaneous moments where they will try to show to give him prominence and all of those things. So we will all watch and we will all see. Another very interesting thing. Usually, when a foreign leader visits a country and has to go to any other part of that country, La République du Cameroon is claiming that the Southern Cameroons is part of La République du Cameroon. And Paul Biya is claiming that the territory of the Southern Cameroons belongs to La République du Cameroon. And so therefore you would expect that when the Pope is going to Bamenda, Paul Biya should accompany his guest to visit some parts of his country, given that he claims it's his country. But you notice that since the outbreak of this phase of our liberation movement in 2016, Paul Biya has never been anywhere in the Southern Cameroons. Though he sits there and makes lousy claims, makes noise, talks trash and all of those things, he has never been to anywhere in the Southern Cameroons. Not to any part of the Southern Cameroons. And so some would have imagined that, oh, the Pope's arrival and the Pope's visit to Bamenda should have given Paul Biya the opportunity to say, okay, let me also go there under the cover of the Pope's visit. And so this is yet another message to those lost souls who continue to think federalism, who continue to think unionism. You should continue to bear in your mind that as far as La République du Cameroon is concerned, we are a conquered territory. We are an attachment. And that is how they treat with us. This should make your head tick. This should make you understand that being part of this liberation movement is the most noble thing ever to do. So, the Pope, while in his aircraft en route for Algeria, which is his first point of entry in Africa, of course, Algeria too is a former French colony, and do not forget, Pope Leo will be, I think, the first Pope to be visiting Algeria, a Muslim country. This is what the Pope said on board of his aircraft, on board the papal plane. He said, "I am inviting all people to look for ways of building bridges of peace and reconciliation, of looking for ways to avoid war anytime that is possible." That's Pope Leo XIV on board the papal plane. Now, before this, I had read a previous message by the Pope on this platform, in which he was still condemning war and said God will not approve and does not approve of war. But going to Cameroon, Pope Leo is going to be rubbing shoulders with a warmonger. He's going to be rubbing shoulders with a genocidaire, with somebody who is who not only initiated but is overseeing an active genocide in the Southern Cameroons. I'm bringing all this, I continue to raise these elements so that this will be the basis from which we will judge the speeches and the actions of Pope Leo when he gets to Cameroon and then to Southern Cameroons. Because I agree with the Pope, war is a bad thing. Violence is a bad thing. Dialogue is awesome. Dialogue is wonderful. Justice is just too important. And so therefore, when I see the Pope locked in a feud with the US president regarding the war in Iran, regarding the war that went on in Gaza, regarding, in short, in general, the wars in the Middle East, I tell myself this should be the same message that the Pope is carrying to Paul Biya. The people of the Southern Cameroons have gone to every end to even literally beg sometimes for dialogue, for negotiations. But Paul Biya has on each occasion rather promised more war. You will recall that with the Swiss initiative that I refused until this day to ever call a process, the people of the Southern Cameroons, against all odds, against even all kinds of advice, against all kinds of expert advice, said, since it is to talk peace, and we understand La République du Cameroon becoming there, we will go. They went to Switzerland over and over. Not even a goat from La République du Cameroon showed up. That is the level of bad faith. That's the level of belligerence that Yaoundé knows. And then on the heels of that, even Canada, that provided resources to HD for the Swiss Peace Initiative, or for the Swiss Initiative for a negotiated settlement, received a call from the Cameroon government itself. And they were mandated by the Cameroon government to initiate a process. They started pre-talks. Cameroon at this point actually sent delegations 3 times to Canada. But at the time that an agreement was entered into for a temporary ceasefire with CBMs agreed to, that is, confidence building mechanisms were agreed to, or measures, and signed by both parties, the Cameroon government suddenly not only withdrew, but even claimed that they had never mandated anyone to do anything on their behalf, and even claimed that they never sent anyone anywhere to discuss anything on behalf of La République du Cameroon. That much we heard from the lips of the Cameroon Minister of Communication. While the Canadian Foreign Minister made clear that they received a mandate, that they got a mandate, that they were even contracted by the Cameroon government, and made clear to the world that the Cameroon government sent delegations to Canada. But the Biya system retracted because they want war, more war, simply because they know they have no arguments to present to back their claims to the territory of the Southern Cameroons. So as the Pope is going to Yaoundé and then to Bamenda, I want to hold the Pope, Pope Leo, by the same standards that I am seeing in his comments, in his social media posts, and all of this. Because the Pope should not pick and choose whose acts to condemn and whose acts to condone. Because if Pope Leo the 14th were to get to Cameroon and return without condemning the ongoing genocide in the Southern Cameroons, without telling Paul Biya and making clear that he has told him that there is need for him to yield to a negotiated settlement, then this whole trip would not only have been a waste, but it will simply comfort the thoughts of those who believe that there are some serious undercurrents between the papacy and Yaoundé, and for the wrong reason. Because Yaoundé is right now, and nobody doubts this, nobody is disputing this, even those who are in Cameroon, the headquarters of Satanism in the world. Yaoundé. It's the headquarters of Satanism in the world. And so therefore, with all these posts and all these messages by the Pope, all eyes are open. All ears. Everyone is removing wax from their ears to listen. And will be scrutinizing very carefully every statement. I mean, every and all statements that the Pope will make. And all the moves that will be made. First, Paul Biya is an illegitimate president, although that's the business of the people of La République du Cameroun, who has always rigged his way to victory and tortured his opponents, beaten and killed protesters who raised their voices to oppose whatever is happening. Yet, he comes across as a favorite of the papacy. But as I have said, we are watching. And let every single Southern Cameroonian, wherever you may be, in whatever way, shape, or form, you can make your voice heard at this time, do. Just one little thing I want to point out to each and every one. Do not think that because you are talking on social media, Rome is not taking note of it. They are seeing everything. Because take note, I've done enterprise communication, and I can tell you that the communications units of all enterprises, therefore, the communication departments of all countries always scrutinize the international media and social media for mentions of either their countries or the leaders of their countries. So anytime you mention Pope Leo somewhere, know that someone somewhere is looking at it and is analyzing. So do not undermine the power of the opinions that you can put, even on social media, regarding this visit, expressing what you feel, what you know, and what you think is supposed to be done with respect to this visit to the Southern Cameroons by Pope Leo XIV. That is the much I'll say at this time. I'll be back here tomorrow as details continue to emerge. But Paul Biya once more clearly not only shows his disdain to the confused so-called political elite of the Southern Cameroons by not accompanying the Pope to Bamenda, he also communicates a clear message to the rest of the world that that is foreign territory, and he is aware of that. Thank you for your very kind attention. If this is the first time that you're visiting on this platform, please go right ahead and hit the subscribe button so that you continue to see my productions. And of course, make sure you personalize so that you'll be the first to know anytime something new drops here. And then, do not forget to share the link. Share, if you're watching, share the link as much as possible. Let's continue to reach as many people as possible. And then do not forget to drop a like, okay? Those likes, they also always go a long way. And then let me get your comments. Let's continue to be part of the discussion. Thank you very much for your very kind attention. To God be the glory.
Vous savez, peut-être un jour, le Vatican nous dira ce qu'il fabrique avec le régime de Paul Biya. Parce que vous ne pouvez pas vous permettre autant de fréquentation avec des gens déconseillables, peu recommandables. Imaginez un évêque ou un prêtre pendant 44 ans continue de venir rendre visite à un chef de gang dans un village, dans une ville. Chaque fois on le voit prendre, couper la bière avec des dealers, des vendeurs de gros, les vendeurs de cure. On se demande bien, même s'il veut rentrer dans la logique où Jésus est venu pour les pécheurs, mais à un moment donné, on va quand même se poser des questions du Val. Premier jour où on vous voit avec le chef des proxénètes, 2 ans après on vous revoit avec le même chef de proxénètes, 4e fois on vous voit avec le même chef de proxénètes, même si c'est pour le reconvertir, ça serait un peu difficilement acceptable. Moi, je souhaite vivement que l'hypothèse évoquée par Edmond soit vraiment la plus pertinente,
c'est-à-dire
qu'elle se réalise finalement. Parce que chez nous, l'extrême onction qu'on appelle moine voix, donc ça veut dire la dernière huile qu'on te met sur le visage, c'est en fait lorsque quelqu'un a du mal à mourir, quelqu'un agonise, il a du mal à mourir finalement, on dit allez appeler un prêtre, peut-être que par là il va mourir. Si le pape vient pour mettre l'huile là sur le régime de Yaoundé, pour finalement mourir, je crois que ça sera une bonne option. Ça veut dire qu'on n'est plus affaire au régime dictatorial de Yaoundé. Si le pape a dans sa valise cette petite bouteille d'huile là, alors on lui ouvre grandement nos bras. Mais si c'est pour continuer à flirter sans incidence sur le quotidien des Camerounais avec les gens peu recommandables, ça devient problématique. À ce moment, on va dire à sa sainteté, avec tout le respect qu'on vous doit, vraiment vous n'êtes pas la bienvenue. Nous, on ne va pas vous accueillir. Peut-être ceux qui ont des fois fanatisé pourront peut-être vous accueillir, mais pas nous autres qui avons une foi lucide. Nous sommes lucides. Donc il y a une grosse différence entre une allégeance qu'on peut faire à un homme de Dieu et notre foi en nous. Moi je suis demeuré chrétien, je suis resté chrétien catholique, confirmé, mais depuis 2004, je ne mets pas moi pied dans des églises. Je ne veux pas avoir de problème avec Dieu. Par conséquent, je ne veux pas suivre ce que les prêtres disent, parce que je les connais. Même les évêques, je les connais. Leurs casseroles, je les connais. Donc ça risque de me mettre en difficulté avec Dieu. Je préfère m'éloigner totalement de tout ce qui est synagogue et église, parce que je ne veux pas écouter ce que les prêtres disent. Donc, M. Duval Fangwa, lorsque vous avez fait allusion à ce que Aloïse a dit la dernière fois, c'est comme si on s'était entendu. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, j'allais revenir sur cette chronologie. Ça veut dire que le pape n'arrive au Cameroun que lorsque Yaoundé vient de commettre des forfaits. Lorsque Yaoundé vient de poser des actes ignobles. Je ne sais pas si c'est la coïncidence. Si c'est la coïncidence. Si c'est...
On fait un coup d'état, on menace un coup d'état au président Paul Biya, et vous parlez de forfait.
On sait ce qui s'est passé après quand même.
Non, mais pas...
Il y a eu plus. On sait ce qui s'est passé après. Il y a eu plus. Oui, on sait ce qui s'est passé. Oui, on n'a pas dit non. Mais ça ne justifie rien. Monsieur Bitima, vous avez évoqué la dérive ici. Nous sommes tout à fait d'accord qu'il y a eu dérive. Mais est-ce que vous pouvez nous présenter un seul article de la loi qui dit que lorsqu'on brûle, on tue à bout portant? Il n'y a aucune loi. Il y a Père Simo Fokam qui a été tué ici à Bilongué. Ça veut dire un papa qui va dans une boutique aller chercher de quoi manger. Et puis quelqu'un dit à côté, il dit à un militaire, faites bien votre travail. Et puis le gars il se retourne, bim, il lui met une fois une balle, il meurt. Pas à lui, mais à papa Simo. Et vous allez venir justifier cela avec les dérives. Nous sommes tout à fait d'accord que lorsqu'il y a dérives au cours des manifestations, et ça ne se passe pas seulement ici au Cameroun, même en France il y a souvent dérives, on casse, mais on ne tire pas à bout portant. On ne tue pas. Donc juste pour vous faire savoir que lorsque le pape arrive ici au Cameroun, c'est toujours au lendemain des forfaits commis par l'ordre de 82. En 85, même chose. En 95, même chose. En 2009, même chose. Aujourd'hui, 2026. Si le Vatican est de bonne foi, il faut qu'il admette aussi que nous autres lisions la chose comme une certaine instrumentalisation de l'Église catholique, de la hiérarchie de l'Église catholique ou du Vatican par l'ordre de 82. C'est aussi ça la réalité. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, il faut que les Camerounais sachent que au-delà du leadership spirituel ou religieux qu'incarne le Vatican reste un État. Et comme on le disait tout à l'heure, nous sommes dans des postures purement réalistes. Le Vatican a également ses intérêts. Le Vatican peut rester dans le business de la foi. Alors, il se rend compte qu'il y a un marché assez large en Afrique centrale. Vous avez évoqué les chiffres tout à l'heure. Il faut aller conforter ce marché qui aujourd'hui se rend à l'évidence que lorsqu'on massacre les Camerounais, le peuple camerounais, le Vatican est complètement muet, ou alors les évêques sont totalement muets en dehors de quelques têtes grillées comme Monseigneur Cléda. Mais le reste, c'est complètement l'alignement. Alors, dans cet environnement-là, peut-être le pape peut dire, je viens sauver mon business de la foi en Afrique centrale en général et au Cameroun en particulier. Je crois qu'aujourd'hui, M. Duval Fangwa, il faut que les Camerounais restent lucides pour évaluer le bien fondé d'une politique publique ou d'un acte. Il faut évaluer ses incidences au niveau de nos ménages. Depuis que le pape vient ici au Cameroun, il y a eu quoi? Le pape est venu en 85 ici au Cameroun. Il y a eu combien de guerres après le pape? Le pape est venu ici pour venir rencontrer les séminaristes. Mais ces séminaristes sont des voleurs. Des séminaristes voleurs. Des séminaristes qui peuvent accumuler des milliards pendant que le peuple est en train de mourir de soif. Mais le pape revient toujours voir les mêmes séminaristes. Les séminaristes détruisent ce qui nous reste de base de survie. Mais le pape revient, il dit, bon, moi je viens juste causer avec les séminaristes. Non, il faut qu'à un moment donné, le pape, s'il aime vraiment le peuple camerounais, qu'il prenne position et qu'il dise aux gens de Yaoundé, vous êtes infréquentables. Je ne vous fréquente plus. Parce que chaque fois, quand le pape arrive, qu'est-ce que les communicants, agents publicitaires du RDPC disent? Ils disent tout simplement que, bon, vous voyez, le pape ne peut venir que chez les gens qui sont sorts. Si on était si violent, le pape ne serait pas chez nous régulièrement. C'est parce que le pape trouve en nous l'esprit des séminaristes, l'esprit de ceci et cela. Pourtant, nous ici au Cameroun, on sait qu'en face de nous, on a affaire aux diabloteurs. Donc il faut qu'à un moment donné, si le pape veut vraiment se redonner une certaine image auprès de l'opinion, il faut dire ça au pape. Que quand il arrive là au Cameroun, qu'il ne se dise pas qu'on ne sait pas ce qu'il veut. Qu'il ne se dise pas que les Camerounais ne sont pas mécontents de la posture du Vatican. Je ne sais même pas avec qui il a causé. Parce que si le pape, lui, il arrive, il cause avec moi, je vais dire sa sainteté. La seule chose que je vous demande, c'est de quitter mon pays, point. Parce que vous ne nous apportez absolument rien. À ce moment précis, je crois qu'il va beaucoup réfléchir. Mais si c'est que chaque fois, quand il arrive, quand on sait bel et bien que les Camerounais, avec la foi, vraiment, la meilleure façon de dominer les Camerounais, c'est de les tirer dans ce couloir. Et Yaoundé l'a compris, chaque fois il faut investir. Parce qu'il faut dire que derrière cette visite papale, il y a toujours une contrepartie en termes d'investissement financier. Ça veut dire que les voyages du pape sont cofinancés entre l'État qui reçoit le pape et le Vatican. Alors nous, on va passer tout notre temps à dépenser autant de milliards pour recevoir le pape qui nous apporte absolument rien. Ne serait-ce que pour condamner les gars de Yaoundé. Donc je crois que quand le pape... une minute.
Non, 30 secondes.
Voilà, le pape en arrivant ici au Cameroun, je répète, il faut qu'il sache qu'on ne l'aime pas du tout. Nous les en bas d'en bas, on ne l'aime pas. On ne l'aime pas pourquoi? Parce qu'il continue de fréquenter quelqu'un qui est peu recommandable. On ne l'aime pas aussi parce que on va venir endormir les Camerounais avec les histoires liées à la foi. Pourtant, on a des besoins d'ordre pratique. Et chaque fois qu'on parle de foi, les Camerounais, c'est comme si on les... voilà. Donc, c'est comme si on les endiablait. Et Yaoundé surfe chaque fois sur ce levier. Il faut financer. C'est pourquoi vous allez voir, les gens sont toujours régulièrement à l'église. Ils ouvrent leur large bouche, ils prennent la communion. Le lendemain, ils sont les premiers à dire sur les plateaux de télévision, à convoquer la presse pour dire que les enfants qu'ils ont tués sont des assaillants. Et ce sont ces mêmes gens qui sont toujours assis devant. Ce sont ces mêmes gens qui invitent les évêques à aller dire les messes chez eux. Ce sont ces mêmes gens qui offrent des églises. Et on croit que ce sont des saints, pourtant de bons diablotins.
Comme l'hirondelle qui annonce le printemps dans un monde.
And so any moment from now, and there comes the Pope. And that's the Pope.
Et Tchémomo, voici donc le pape Léon XIV qui a atterri dans la terre camerounaise. Il est 2h11 en Simalène. Il descend les marches de l'échelle de coupé ici à l'aéroport international de Simalène pour ce premier voyage apostolique au Cameroun.
He has a white castle and it's called Ham. They are all symbols of, I think, humility, symbols of holiness, symbols of charity. And there he's received by the Prime Minister and the government
Son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République du Cameroun, Madame Chantal Biya, son épouse, et l'ensemble du peuple camerounais vous souhaitent une chaleureuse bienvenue et un agréable séjour au Cameroun. Your Holiness Pope Leo XIV, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Cameroon, Mrs. Chantal Biya, his wife, and the people of Cameroon wish you a warm welcome and a pleasant stay in Cameroon.
Here we are to Cameroon, that's how we say it in Canada, Lagos, yeah, in the center region. Jabana, for those in the Bana region, they are all glued to their screens right now.